Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Payson. Welcome back to everyone who's already a subscriber to the channel. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe so you can see more great interviews, including the one coming at you right now. First time guest of the show has a big super fight, BJJ, no gi, submission only, coming up for 247 Fighting Championships. Sprawl in the Burgh 3, April 19th, just a few weeks away. Heather Mayne, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Always great to have a first-time guest on the show, so thanks so much for taking time out of your training schedule to come on. Before we jump in to your big matchup with Lydia George, let's go back. Give me and the audience a little bit of history on what got you into jiu-jitsu, how long have you been training at Renzo Gracie Morgantown, and kind of your experience as you've been practicing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, so I got a late start. Like I started at 35, so it's been about 3 years, a little over. I had started doing Muay Thai, and everyone was always like, "Oh, you need to like come to the back room, and I'm like, maybe. So then I finally did, and then that became my main focus. So I've just preferred that ever since.
And what was like the clicking moment where you were obviously training Muay Thai? What aspect of jiu-jitsu do you remember, a move or a situation that really allowed you to like say, oh, this is going to be my main focus?
I think it was just like all the little pieces. It was more active, like brain wise, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but you really have to think about it.
Sure.
So I like the ground stuff, the grappling. I'm just naturally an aggressive person, so I just enjoy it, I guess. So yeah.
Well, that makes sense. You know, the great analogy is that it's a chess match with body parts, because obviously you have to think through, and you can be kind of a more aggressive person in jiu-jitsu. You can be more of a defensive kind of trap, like a lot of people call it, the trap, kind of setting up traps. So there's lots of different things for sure. Yeah. Well, cool. What type of competitive experience have you had since you focused on jiu-jitsu? What have you been doing as far as competition goes?
So I've done like a couple tournaments, Grappling Industries, Naga, PBJJF. I've had 2 super fights in the last year. So I like the tournaments. It's always hard for me to find an opponent. So I think like just the super fights is kind of like more of a thing that I'd prefer.
Easier to get that.
Makes you work harder.
Yeah. There's a lot of advantages. BJJ is very much a tournament sport. Like that's still how most people get it. And for people that don't know, a lot of times you're not matched up ahead of time. You show up, you weigh in, they place you based on gender and experience or belt level. If it's no-gi, it's usually years of experience, whatever it is. And sometimes depending on your age category and weight and all those type things, sometimes you can end up having nobody or having like a big mismatch one way or the other. Super fights, in some ways, you're kind of guaranteed a more competitive matchup because it's hand selected by legend Jim Mooney or Hunter Homestead, wherever else from 247 put it together. Have you been to a 247 super fight, or what we call sprawl in the Burgh? They've had 2 before. Have you been to one of them? Do you know what it's kind of to expect in a cage?
Yeah. So I came to the Sprawl in the Burgh 2 last year. I had a couple of my teammates competing, so I came to show support. I tried getting on that card, didn't work out. But yeah, it was really cool to see.
And what do you think as it relates to your upcoming match? What do you think about being in the enclosed cage? You've done some super fights. You said 2 super fights before. Were any of them in cages? And what do you think that gives you as far as pros and cons for being in the cage?
Yeah, so my first super fight last year was in a cage with New Line. So that was pretty cool. We didn't get close to the cage, so it didn't really like play a part into it. My second super fight was not in a cage, but I don't really mind either way. I guess if we get up against it, I'll have to figure out, and I should probably be prepared for that.
Well, you've got a little bit of time to kind of practice some of those things, and really a wall, you don't actually need a fence. I know a lot of times when MMA started to get popular, people think if you train in a cage that's somehow more like MMA, but it's really not, like a wall or something. But yeah, you'll have the opportunity down there at Renzo Gracie. I'm sure they have some techniques to
Yeah.
refresh with you. What are your thoughts as far as your opponent, Lydia George? I know in like the MMA circles, most of the time people know a lot about their opponent. At least they try. In BJJ, which is kind of a unique experience, a lot of times you don't really seek out a lot of information. There's not a lot of information to be found, and a lot of BJJ practitioners, from my interviews, really, are kind of okay just sort of figuring out when they're in there and kind of reacting to what the person does. So are you in the camp where you know a lot about Lydia George, or is it kind of you're just going to see what happens when you're in there?
It's gonna have to be to wait and see. I know nothing about her. Her socials are private,
Oh,
which I know a lot of people do that, and so part of me like wants to know to prepare, but then a lot of my teammates are just like, just let it happen. Just wait and see. Like if I stick with my game and know what I'm capable of, then that's what I'm gonna focus on.
yeah, that control the controllables is a great mindset when you get into any type of competition, particularly jiu-jitsu, where you're going to be able to control your response to her, and part of that is going to be able to then force her to hopefully respond in a way that sets you up.
Yeah.
This is a submission only. Do you like submission only, or are you also comfortable in Naga, where it's much more of like a sort of a wrestling mindset where it's point based, or do you like both?
I mean, I'm okay with both. I think the submission only really pushes you to like really go for it because I mean that's the goal, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, who doesn't want to win by submission? So, it's way better winning by that than by points. So I'm excited for that.
Sure, yeah, and in this format with Sprawl and the Burgh 3, there aren't points. If you go to what ends up being a decision, they don't have draws. If you go to end up being a decision, it's made by one judge,
Mhm.
and of course that judge is a little subjective, but that judge in the past it's been stated they'll have a rules meeting, they'll go over it. You can talk, you can ask what the judge is looking for. But what I've heard before is that the judges look for, and there'll be one referee and then one judge. Typically, is how I set it up, and they flip flop. So it's really a referee that's
Uh-huh.
the outside that's watching. And typically, what they look for, because it is a jiu-jitsu match, is more you can play bottom game, and sometimes wrestlers play a lot of top game and still lose. But it really
Hmm.
is about submissions, technique, whether or not you're close to a submission, whether or not you're active, leg entanglement, 50-50 stuff. They give a lot of weight to, because if you're working on a heel hook, or some of the other
Yeah.
situations where in more of an MMA mindset, which most of my audience is used to MMA, if you're on top in MMA, you're almost always winning because of the position and ground and pound. Where in jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
it really depends on technique. So I think it's very technique driven. Obviously, you'll make the most of what your style is. There's so many different styles in
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu. It's much more of a fluid thing. So do you have a thought as far as a prediction? And if not, what do you say to people that will be coming out to watch you? I know Morgantown to Canonsburg, where this will be held, is a pretty short drive, so I'm assuming you'll have some support.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my main goal is going to be to go in and get that submission. Um, I'm comfortable with different types of submissions. I don't really want to have like one thing on my mind. So, just go with it. If I don't get the submission, then that's fine. I know I need to make the best of it and not be, you know, slow and not trying for anything. So I'm good with how the rules are set up. Totally.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's good to have the mindset now that you're gonna, it is a submission only, so it's kind of
Hmm.
geared towards being more obviously submission focused. I think that's why they've set it up that way. And this is only the third standalone sprawl event, and obviously that's still pretty early, so they may change things as they go along. But for now, it's been super exciting, and so far all the sprawl and the burgs have been part of a double header, which I personally think makes it very exciting, particularly if they
Yeah.
also have MMA that they're supporting. It's jiu-jitsu one night, MMA the next night, back to back, same venue, Hollywood Casino at the Meadows, which is an incredible venue and super exciting. So I'm glad to have you on the
Yeah.
show. I'm super
I
excited. Do you have
appreciate
other
it.
people? Do you have other people out of Renzo Gracie on both cards, or just jiu-jitsu? What is your teammates like coming into this card?
So I have a couple teammates that have signed up for the Sprawlenberg 3. They just haven't got matched yet. So, but just like any of the Sprawl and the Bergs, not all of us can get on it. So if you're not If you're not on it, then you're there supporting. So
Sure. Yeah, and you
yeah,
had that role last time. So, and that's what can
yeah,
be unique in a gym environment. Yes, everyone competes or fights individually, but there is that team mindset as far as training goes. And so last time you were there as a teammate to support, this time you're a competitor, and the
yep,
roles flip. And for anybody out there that's getting into it, I'd say it's a lot like a lot of sports. You know, high school wrestling has a lot of this aspect. The better teammate you are goes a long way. So
yeah,
obviously you were a great teammate
yeah,
last time. And there are some people I think that focus more on the competition, and then sometimes they're not as much of a teammate, but both roles are super important. It's been really great having you on the show. I always appreciate
yeah,
it. We're only about 3 weeks out, so I can't wait to see
yep,
it in action. People need to get tickets directly from you or 247fighting.com where they can give you credit. So you get
yep,
credit. If somebody is watching you from out of state or they're not going to drive in for it, then pay-per-view. And the best way to do pay-per-view, they can still give credit to you, of course, is to download the app. What's really cool about 247 Fighting Championships is they have an app in any of the app stores, 247 Live. You download the app, you can buy a pay-per-view. You can even get the whole year subscription, which gets you every pay-per-view, which is really a great deal. Gets you every pay-per-view and the entire bank of all previous database of all previous fights, both MMA and jiu-jitsu. So that's just kind of a shout out for people that are watching this that want to find
yep,
out how to support you. So
yeah.
it's
That's
really
good to know.
awesome. Of
A couple
course,
people
it's
out
really
of
great.
state.
Yes. Oh, you got people out of state?
I do, yeah. Yeah, my mom and sister, so they'll want to buy the pay-per-view.
Well, there you go. They want to buy a pay-per-view. That's awesome. It's always
Yeah,
great to know. I think that's one of the cool parts about this promotion is having a good pay-per-view. I can't
yeah.
wait to see you in action April 19th. Thanks so much for
Thank
taking the time
you.
out. This has been Luke Payson from They Think Us with first-time guest of the show, Heather Mayne. Thanks so
Yep,
much.
thank you. Bye.
Got it.